All right, so the one that got away, and I'm going to talk about JKS later, but the one that got away so far for Oregon was Linkon Cure. Five-star tight end, was committed to Kansas State. This is why you can take comments and interpret them as best you can, but until pen goes to paper, nothing is done, nothing's decided. Because if you'd asked me coming into today, I would have said Oregon gets Linkon Cure and doesn't get Dallas Wilson based on what the latest intel was. And yet, Linkon Cure stays with Kansas State. He reportedly had a commitment post to Oregon ready to go. It got that close. It came down to the wire. And for a lot of kids, it does. But he sticks with Kansas State. That's a huge recruiting victory for the Wildcats and Chris Kleiman. Runs a really solid program. He's from the state of Kansas as well. So wanted to stay close to home, probably played a factor there. But that's the one, that's quite literally the only miss that Oregon has had so far. Because for them to be in the position that they're in right now, you just can't expect to win every single, like, yes, I would love, absolutely love to get JAKHEEM Stewart, top defensive lineman in the class of 2025. But when I look at the way that Oregon is loaded up in this recruiting class at the moment, it is very wide receiver, defensive back heavy. That's where the highest ranked players are. That's where there are just a lot of players, is at those particular spots. And I think that's reflective of what is about to depart from Oregon's roster in 2025. You're going to lose a bunch of wide receivers. You're going to lose a bunch of defensive backs. And yeah, there are going to be portal options out there that Oregon will explore, but you want to have as much competitive depth as you possibly can. So I think they're doing just an absolutely phenomenal job, and Linkon Cure is literally the lone miss. But that is, as I've talked about in the football sense, we can carry this logic over to the recruiting sense. This is first world problems. Didn't get Linkon Cure, missed a five-star tight end. Well, they've got a bunch of other five-star guys that they have gone after, and the potential to hold on to a top 5 class, which is where 24/7 has got it right now, is incredibly real. They've got them up to 4. Oregon has jumped Ohio State in the 24/7 composite rankings. Other services have higher. On3's got them at number 2. Regardless, like this is shaping up to be a really, really strong national signing day and a great late cycle surge from Dan Lanning and his staff. But did not get Linkon Cure. They do still have Vander Plug. Remember the 4-star tight end who flipped from Washington. There's another tight end out there. I forgot his name off the top of my head, quite frankly, but that Oregon is in the mix for. He's a 4-star that I think is considering Michigan and 1 or 2 other schools as well. So we'll see if that drops later in the day. But overall, at the tight end position, I think Oregon is okay. You know, Roger Saliapaga will be a sophomore next year. And AJ Pugliano will be a redshirt freshman next year because I don't think he's played in 4 games this season. They've got Vander Plug coming in, and then Kenyon Sadiq will be back. So, yeah, that's relying on a lot of young guys. So I'm not surprised to see him going after another tight end just to try to build out the depth at that position. But overall, I think Oregon is okay. And would I rather have had Cure or Dallas Wilson? Indifferent, quite frankly. Indifferent, but getting at least one of them is really good. And I don't know which player I'm most excited about. The answer is probably Dakorien Moore, because Oregon's never had the number 1 receiver. Like, when was the last time a true freshman wide receiver stepped on campus and was just great right away? Like, DeAnthony Thomas was a wide receiver running back hybrid, but like as a true freshman, guy was making plays immediately. So that's kind of who comes to mind in some respects when I watch Dakorien Moore, who's more of a receiver. He's not a running back, though he played a little bit of a corner I saw in a game recently as well. Somebody sent me that highlight, and I thought that was great. But Cooper Perry signed to the wide receiver position as well, 6'1", 185, a 4-star guy. Douglas U2 signed. Matthew Johnson signed. That's an offensive tackle and an edge player, respectively. Trey McNutt, I don't think he has signed his national letter of intent. He might be doing it later on, but of course the big news is Na'eem Offord and Dallas Wilson. Because if you told me, look, Oregon's gonna get one of those guys, yeah, could have seen that, but both, boy, that's phenomenal stuff. Phenomenal stuff. Dorian Brew signed his national letter of intent. Zaire Addison as well. Brew is a highly rated 4-star corner who was also an Ohio State target once upon a time. Maybe winning that game matters. Maybe Michigan beating Ohio State matters. Maybe it didn't. I don't know. All I know is that he's going to be an Oregon Duck, and that's great. Zach Staskowski, who was Washington's second highest rated player in the 25 class that Oregon flipped a couple days ago, talked about him earlier this week. He signed. Nasir Wyatt signed, a linebacker or outside linebacker, edge sort of guy. I'll talk about him more in just a sec. Achilles Smith Jr. signed at the quarterback position. I'll talk about the quarterbacks in the next segment. Vander Plug signed. Jordan Davison signed, the running back. Dimitri Manning signed, 4-star offensive tackle. Could also maybe play on the interior. So those are the names so far that have signed with Oregon in the class of 2025 officially. And it's a great day to be a Duck. I think Dakorien Moore has the greatest potential to be an instant impact guy. Of the players whose film I've watched extensively, which is most of these guys, I haven't looked at Gavin Nix yet, the linebacker that Oregon flipped from Miami a couple days ago. Our recruiting insider Brian Smith raves about that guy's film. Like, he's a 4-star recruit, but I think Brian thinks he should be a 5-star. But Nasir Wyatt is the guy whose tape is the craziest to me. He is the fastest player coming off the edge I can remember seeing. I can't, one does not immediately pop in my head of like, oh yeah, well there was this guy. Oh, well there was that guy. Nasir Wyatt can play linebacker. Nasir Wyatt could, maybe bulk up a bit and play edge. He's 6'2", 220 pounds. So, an edge like Mateo's maybe typically more in the 6'5" range. So maybe he does just end up playing linebacker. He's crazy fast, like crazy fast and twitchy and explosive. Those are the two guys' films, Dakorien and Nasir Wyatt, whose I love the most. For those of you that have watched film out there, who are you most excited for? Let me know in the YouTube comments. Curious what you guys think. But I just can't get over how well the day is going. And it's not even done. It's not even done. Like I said, I wanted to get the show up for you guys because I've got some work stuff later. And I've got to record my crossover with Zach Sako, Lockdown Nittany Lions, for tomorrow's episode as well. But wanted to give the full attention and energy required of how National Signing Day is going so far. And I tell you what, I will have some kind of juice and pep in my step on Friday if Oregon's able to land JAKHEEM Stewart. But this should be known as the perimeter class. The lineup of wide receivers and defensive backs that this class has got is unlike anything that Oregon brought in before. And I can't tell you right now with 100% certainty when those guys contribute or when they become starters. It could be 25, could be 26, could be 27. But there is a crazy amount of talent on the perimeter in this class. And I think that makes some sense because Oregon beefed up in the trenches a lot in the last couple of cycles, particularly along the defensive line. So I think they feel pretty good and solid there, and now they're loading up on their perimeter, and recruiting matters. Don't ever let somebody tell you that it doesn't, because it absolutely does. Let me know your thoughts. I'm sure you guys have got plenty in the YouTube comments below. All right, so JKS was not necessarily a surprise, but is a surprise. I'm going to talk about that coming up next because, as always, I have thoughts.